Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the One-to-One series. Martin Redmayne here, as usual. Joined today by the wonderful Ken Hickling, live from his recording studio down in Southampton. Ken, how are you?
I'm awfully well, actually. I had my jab today, so now I'm building my immunity. Even as we speak, I will look better and better during the whole course of this interview.
We'll watch that very closely. Ken. Thank you. Welcome to the One-to-One series. We've called this the human factor for two reasons. One is that you're very, very heavily involved in associations, organizations over the past, where there's an industry network and industry sort of gatherings always at the forefront of your business. And you also work within the world of training and management and development of people. So it just seems to be a fairly good topic headline, the human factor.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Martin. And if nobody has mentioned it, because I haven't watched all these interviews before, but if nobody's mentioned it, I'm going to quote one of the management gurus that I studied when I did my MBA, which is the people are the business. And we're all here because we're in business. I imagine everybody's watching these various interviews because they want to learn and they want to push their own businesses forward and learn about the market space. But ultimately, it's about people, and I think the human factor is the most important one. It's where innovation comes from, let's face it.
Yeah, I've had an interesting few conversations with like Brendan O'Shannessy and Richie Blake and a few others. One of the things I'm very conscious of, Ken, I think this is an interesting topic for you from your Viking perspective, the company, not the actual people, is essentially we're going into a space where we need more people. We need better people, especially on board. What are your concerns there, Ken? What are your thoughts on that topic of the people running the assets? Because they're pretty sophisticated things these days.
Oh, they are, and I think I think any captain of any size super yacht, possibly just above 35 meters or maybe even above 30 meters. These things are complicated. They're bristling with technology. There's we're the sort of people, Martin, who have difficulty programming the VCR. By the way, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's a tape thing for recording off the television. And how many times we used to walk into people's houses and they were just flashing 12 because nobody could even set the clock on these things. And now you've got super yachts that are just super complicated. And I think what we are in is a world where there is absolutely nobody who actually gets it all. And therefore it becomes a reality that the operators and the captain is obviously one of the operators, but there are shore-based groups of people who also could be classed as the operators of the vessel. They have to rely on specialists increasingly because of the complexity and also because of the high value of the asset. You want to make sure things are done right. So we have an industry that's full of specialists who are specializing in whatever it is. And some of these things are driven by regulation, like your DPA. Part of your ISM, and there's others that are driven by simple efficiency. I'm going to get this company to do my payroll. I'm going to get this company to manage all my air conditioning upgrades and all this thing. So we've got specialists who are being corralled and managed by the captain and whoever's supporting the captain in the operation of the vessel. And I think what this really brings us to is that managing people. And here we are back on the people topic again, managing people and managing all those connections of all those specialists, because they're supporting different members of the crew in different ways. People providing engineering parts, people are providing food and drink and skills, training, all these things. Managing all those specialists and connecting them all and staying on top of them is really the challenge for today's operator of a super yacht. And I think to think that a captain can do it all on their own, you've got to find some very exceptional people. And I think the wise captain is the one who says, okay, I'm still in charge, and they should be in charge in my humble opinion. I'm still in charge, but I'm going to need these people to help me. And let's fold back into the second part of your question, which is the crew and the quality of the crew, which I think was sort of behind it. And I think we're in a world where right now, once again, we're not competing with the cruise industry for quality crew, but in a year's time we will be once again. Despite the pandemic, there's still over 100 cruise vessels in build or on order, and they're not scrapping them at the same rate. So that is a growing fleet. And that places a demand on exceptional crew. And these are people who are very well resourced to manage their crew, to hire and to interview and to select appropriate crew. And I do think that there are plenty of examples where super yachts in operation are not necessarily selecting and interviewing and hiring their crew using a repeatable and robust process that's going to get them the best crew. You know, we're seeing, yes, I think we're seeing crew rotating a little more slowly. You know, it used to be that if you could keep a junior crew member for a year, you were doing quite well.
Yeah.
I think people are now disappointed if they leave in less than 18 months. So that having them stay a little bit longer is great, because you can develop a greater understanding of the vessel operation. And when the crew are clearer in their own minds about how to do things on the vessel, they are better placed to deliver exemplary service. And let's face it, exemplary service is what drives the smiles. You know, super yachts aren't a business. They are an endpoint of an experience mechanism that's delivering these wonderful experiences, building these fantastic memories. And I think it was Glenn Hutchinson said, you know, you can't measure it. There is no bottom line. There is no cash measure for the success of a super yacht. It is measured in smiles. And if a crew that's doing really well, a crew that's happy in themselves, that is well managed and has all the appropriate skills to do their job, they're going to deliver more smiles. And that's what we want as an industry, because all those owners are going to go back and tell all their friends, this is a great experience. And it doesn't matter whether they're chartering or buying. We want them to come back, and we want them to tell their friends.
Yeah. No, I think it's an important point, Ken, is that developing new people is part of the remit, let's say, of the training world and the recruitment world. Do we go far enough, or do we have the right courses these days to get the right people on board?
Okay.
A lot of mandatory stuff.
Yes. I think
sometimes I worry is it's too rigid in its approach, and I wonder if there's something missing in the market today.
There's two things, and they slide along together in what I think is an unproductive way. The first thing is that in an industry which is not an industry, is it, Martin? It's a market sector. In a market sector which is driving to deliver the best, and people say the best of the best, it's things that are exceptional. I always find it astounding to find that people are looking at ways to cut costs, because the way to cut costs well is through efficiency, not just cutting corners off. And yet people often seek to cut costs by cutting corners. And this happens, everywhere. You can point to shipyards, you can point to service providers, you can point to all sorts of people. You've got to build more efficient systems that can deliver the same thing with less effort, and then you've taken cost out, but you haven't cut corners. So there is a thing about cutting cost and about controlling cost, and people think, well, okay, how much training do I have to do? Oh dear, my renewals are coming up on my STC W. I've got to go, and I have got to go and do my training. And it's like, well, okay, but what training would you like to do to be better? Yeah. What about the training for your next career progression? Well, there's very few vessels that are prepared to invest in their crew for their next career progression, because so often they fear that they're going to lose that person. Now that's the sign to me of an industry that still has some maturing to do. We've seen this in other industry sectors elsewhere, where at the early stages people don't want to invest in their people because they fear losing them. As the industry matures, what they realize is that they might invest in one person that they lose, but then they'll hire somebody that somebody else has invested in. And once people become a little bit more relaxed in that, and understand that there is a free-flowing jobs market, and in fact it's a good thing that people do move around, then I think people will become more relaxed about losing the investment they've made in one crew, because they'll be gaining the investment somebody else has made. But there will still be the people who seek to take advantage of it and say, well, I'll hire people, but I won't invest in people. The trouble is, it's like hiring in top footballers. You have to pay a lot of money to get them. Whereas if you just had an academy in the first place and built your own players, then you can probably field a very good team at a lower cost. But you've got to have a longer term focus to do that. And I think captains that see themselves in command on a particular vessel for a decent length of time are the ones who do adopt this approach. and the ones who are moving from vessel to vessel, either because they're on a career progression or for whatever the reason might be, then they're not thinking, well, I need to invest in my crew, because they don't really necessarily see them as their crew. It's just their current crew.
Yes, yeah.
It's just my opinion. I'm not saying this is an absolute fact, or I haven't got any data to particularly back it up.
But I like opinions. Can you know that? You know that.
True. It's my perception. It's my perception, which is as good as reality, I always think.
Absolutely. No, but in terms of putting your future thinking head on, and you look at what we need to do for the next 10 years, because we estimate there's going to be another 2,000 boats coming to the market in the next 10 years, maybe more, because the market's still quite hot at the moment. It's quite interesting activity. That's a lot of people we need. And I think the most important thing to look at is where are they coming from, and how are we finding or developing people? What can we do better? Because your daughter's moved into the industry now, and there's a next generation coming through. What can we do to improve that journey, let's say, into our industry?
Well,
does the hideous program Below Deck help us, for example?
I haven't really watched any episodes, so I really have assiduously tried not to have an opinion about that. I think at one level, if you take the view that there is no such thing as bad publicity, then the hideous program that is, as you refer to it as Below Decks, is serving a purpose, because it's showing people that there is a job to be had. We work, you and I, in the UK, for which the maritime sector is worth something like 49 billion per year to the UK economy. It's no small beer, and yet I've been to a whole bunch of schools. I'm in the Maritime UK's ambassador program, where you sit in front of school kids and tell them stuff about your job and so on, and they've never heard of the marine industry, and yet they know there's an automotive industry because they see the cars driving down the streets. They know that there's a retail industry. They know there's a hospitality industry. They can see hotels and stuff. They know there's a public sector, and they know there's even aerospace, because they can see airplanes. But we are the most invisible industry, and if we want to get good talent, we have to go out and become more visible. So Below Decks is helping us be more visible. So that's a good thing. Whether it's putting the right people off or the wrong people, pushing people away that we want, I don't know. But I do know that our profile needs to be a good deal higher. And I think all of us need to think, well, what can I do to ensure that people anywhere within my radius of influence, who are 15, 16, 17, can know anything about our industry. I'm super pleased because Megan went to study naval architecture. She's got that degree under her belt, and now she's doing her master's in sustainable enterprise, and she's been working with the Water Revolution Foundation, helping them build their database on green technology for super yachts. So she loves the look of this industry. She knows it's a place where salaries are good and all the rest of it. We need to be telling that story to millions of kids, because we don't want them going to work for Rolls-Royce. And whether that's automotive or aerospace, I still don't want them working for Rolls-Royce. I don't mind them working for the bit of Rolls-Royce that makes the synchro lifts, though. So because that's maritime. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've got to recognise that we as an industry are in competition with these other industry sectors, and we are part of maritime. I know we like to think of ourselves as somewhat separate and niche because we're big and white boat, but in truth, it's a broader challenge, and people will get maritime qualifications, and we will want those highly qualified people. So there's education bringing us good quality people. There is, you touched on it earlier, there is training and the investment on training that we talked about, and again we touched on managers nurturing people and bringing them through. But I think also one of the things we've got to do is to take a good, long, hard look at ourselves and say, if we lined up all the crew on all the super yachts, what is the ethnic diversity on board? And it's not, I believe it's not great. Mm-hmm. And there may be all sorts of reasons for that. And in particular, it might be the owner's choice, that they want people that they have, they feel an affinity with to be on their crew. So that it's not a criticism per se, but I do know that, and people don't necessarily like the diversity word. It's one of those woke things, and it is very difficult to manage diversity. It's far easier to manage people who are like you, in terms of their culture and their age, and all, even their gender. But actually, you get a better solution when you have a more diverse group of people. You get different ideas, different solutions, different approaches, and it is harder to manage, but it's a richer, better result. And once we can work out how to tap into that right across the super yacht sector to begin with, so that we're getting people from everywhere joining in to help us build a better product in terms of this thing that delivers these memories and these smiles, that will be great. And maybe when it's the crew, it still ends up being, that the owners are picking people that are a bit like them. You find quite a lot of Asian boats are crewed by Asian people, and a lot of boats in the Med are crewed by people who look very, very Mediterranean and very European, and so on. And so, as I say, I'm not really poking a finger at the crew end of this, but I think we do need to wonder to ourselves, how do we get more diversity? Because that's where we're going to get a bit more innovation, a little bit more variety, new ideas. And new ideas are always good because some of them are going to be functional and useful, and they're going to take us forward.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Ken. And then let's talk about the industry as a whole, because I have a few questions I normally ask about the industry. What frustrates you about our industry?
Short-termism.
Yeah.
There are people who are looking for making a good deal of money in the next year or two, and some of them are looking to make so much money in the next year or two that they think they're going to cash out. They're gonna it'll pay for their next house or their retirement or whatever it is, and so they're looking to make the money and maximize the profit. And it's a bit like having a board of directors in a large corporation that are overly bonused on this year's results. They make poor decisions for the benefit of the long-term future of the organization. And I think, we aren't a company, we are a group of companies in a sector, and people are trying to build some future. But some people, I suspect, who aren't necessarily running a company that has to have a future, are potentially just working for their next kill. They just want to harpoon a whale, drag it on board, and then that's good enough. And I think for all the while that we have that situation where that's how people could make their money, and they do make their money in big slabs, that short-termism is going to be with us. I don't have a particular answer in my back pocket, but I think that people who work for a future, and whether it's a long-term retirement future, you think of the people who are employed in the public sector, they're always less well paid, but they've got these lovely pensions to look forward to. They're working for a long-term future sort of thing. People who are building family businesses that they want to hand to their children, they're thinking generationally, they're thinking 20 or 30 years out. That kind of longer-term focus, I think, is a good thing, because it means people take more measured decisions rather than quick snap decisions.
Yeah.
That would be my first frustration. How many more do you need?
Give me another one.
I think we are. I mentioned it earlier. This cost focus rather than a value focus. There are lots of people who do get the notion of value. There are lots of people who say, I'm going to go with a premium provider because I want the benefit that it brings. I always talk with people about value when we're discussing how is it possible that Louis Vuitton can sell a suitcase when a Samsonite suitcase or whatever contains exactly the same numbers of pairs of socks. Value is clearly delivered in different ways to different people, and assessing and understanding value is, I think, really important, because over-engineering is a waste. It's a waste of the client's money. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your competitive advantage. To keep your customers happy, you only have to exceed what they need, what they want, by a very small margin. It may seem cynical to do that, but actually, if you just stay that little bit ahead of what your customer is expecting, then you're delivering great value all the time. And I think people there are plenty of people in our industry who act as if they know what's best for the client. And sometimes they do know exactly what's best for the client because they've spent the time and trouble to understand what the client really wants, at an emotional level, what they really want. But others are again, specialists potentially who say, well, this is my field and I know what good looks like. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what we should do because I know what good looks like. Should we ask the client? Oh, they won't understand. Yeah. Like, well, I don't understand how this works. It's got precious metals in it called palladium, which is also the name of a fabulous super yacht. I don't know what the palladium does. I know it's got palladium in it, but I do know how to operate my phone, and I do know what I like about it. So I don't need to understand a great deal of detail, but ask me what I like. Ask me the color, the size, the shape, the screen, the way the fingerprint sensor. There's a whole bunch of things in there which I know why I like or don't like them. And if you never ask the client, oh, he's too busy, she's doing other things. Like, well, do you know what? How do you know? Who the heck are you to say these things? And so there's people on the one end who are pushing the envelope of wonderfulness in a direction that maybe isn't satisfying the owner's needs. And then at the same time, people are trying to cut costs. And it's like, well, stop shaving away at the edges and let's find out what the owner wants. Deliver that for the owner, or just slightly more than that if you want to delight them. And then you won't have to cut costs and take risks with space or safety or durability or any of these other things that are also important down the line.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at the future, Ken, what's your expectation?
What parameter would you like? Size, speed, style? What do you think?
In terms of where the market's heading, are we heading in a good direction? Are we heading in the right direction? What's your expectation of the future?
I know that good stuff usually shines through. Quality of service, quality of design, matching the design to what people want. Making what you say you're going to make, all that kind of stuff. That usually shines through. Sometimes it gets overtaken by smoke and mirrors, but by and large it wins through, and it has been doing progressively, and I think to a greater degree as each decade has gone by. I think the industry, the sector, the designs, the desires, it's always going to surprise us. We think we know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, and then suddenly it doesn't. Suddenly we see there's a big trend towards, going to polar zones, Arctic vessels, discovery, all the rest of it, when we all thought that having a super yacht was about hanging around on a beach and doing a bit of jet skiing and stuff. And it turns out it's not that, it's something else, and so the way that people use their super yachts in order to do the things that they want to do, get the experiences they want, is I think changing. It's always changing, it's evolving. There isn't a sudden quantum leap into a new direction, but as you find yourself 3-4 years later, you go, oh, we're here now. Well, this wasn't quite what I had predicted, and it creeps up on you. You suddenly notice that there's a lot more of that kind of boat, or that kind of charter, or that kind of design popping up. I think all the speculative designs we see when we do Google image for super yacht and see wild designs, some of them are going to hit, but most of them aren't. But then these are the designs from the designers. The best ones are always the ones that come out of the owner's head. When they ask for something that seems crazy, and then somebody works out how to do it. Yeah. And then you go, oh, that's nice. And other people then want the same thing because I think that many owners are quite similar in what they really want. Yes, they might want to make a statement of a vessel that's reasonably individual and represents them in some way. But in truth, the front end's usually going to be sharp and the back end's usually going to be blunt. And there's a whole bunch of things that they're still going to be like that. And what people always like is space and light. And so designs that can deliver that in the style that people want, for the purpose that people want, those are the designs that are going to get made.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, a little segue into the next 6 months. We're going to come out of lockdowns. We're going to come out of this chaos and this madness, this virtual world we're in. What are you expecting to happen, Ken, in terms of boat shows or events or that human factor of getting back together again?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Marty. And I'm glad we've swung back to it, because almost without exception, everybody I speak to is hankering to get out and shake hands with people, hug people, have a cup of coffee with people. The regimented Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever your preferred video conferencing method is, it's nearly something o'clock. I've got to go to my next meeting. You know, we're finding ourselves packed into half-hourly or one-hourly things, and it's like, well, you know, we don't really exist in half-hourly or one-hourly things. You know, ask a lawyer who lodges his time in quarter-hourly stints. It's like, it's never a quarter hour. It's like 12 minutes or 17 minutes or whatever, and they're forcing it into this framework. Well, we're all being forced into this one-hourly or half-hourly framework by Outlook. And when you go to a real meeting with real people, there's this bit where you stand around before or afterwards chit-chatting with one or other of the people that was in that meeting, and you have that little sidebar discussion. You pick up that little bit of extra market intelligence that Zoom isn't quite giving us. So I am really keen to be back into a place where you're standing at a coffee table. I'm thinking of the Super Yacht Forum, where we're all sitting around those high tables, or we're having lunch. I'm thinking of the Monaco show now, or we're eating a hot dog at the Fort Lauderdale show. Any of these things, we you know, there's that dull moment where it's nothing quite happening. I've got an hour to kill, and then you find yourself just having a really relaxed conversation with somebody because you're kind of between appointments, and so are they. And you know, you're shooting the breeze, but along the way you're learning little bits and pieces of information. At the very least, you're learning more about that person, and quite possibly learning more about the markets and opportunities that might be there. And that all that detail is eluding us right now. There are very few of these formal events that give us that kind of interaction. And I think that as soon as the ability to travel and the ability to get more than 6 people into a space, it arrives, the floodgates are going to open. People are going to be desperate to go anywhere. You know, I think I was saying earlier, we're going to be having loads of networking lunches and evenings and stuff here in Southampton. There's so many thousands of us working in the super industry here that it's just going to happen, and there'll be a frenzy of interaction. And yeah, I think probably starting in June, for the next 6 months, it's going to be crazy, and then it'll settle down in 2022.
But in terms of the format of events or the format of these opportunities, do you see them changing? We're not going to go straight back to how it was before pandemic, are we?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. Let's start with the workplace. The workplace is going to be different. I know that British Marine, the bigger organisation that surrounds Super Yacht UK, moved from its Egham office, which it owns, which it then let out, and now moved down to Ocean Village in Southampton. Well, smart move, because they're closer to their membership, but also it costs them less to rent an office in Southampton than it does for the money they get in Egham, so that's a wise move too. But at the same time, they also made a shift, and I was in the office for a Super Yacht UK committee meeting. I said, it's a bit empty, and they said, yeah, we only require people to be here on Mondays and Fridays, and the other 3 days they can come in or not. And it's like, oh, that's groovy. Well, even the people local, yeah, the people in Hamble who've got like a 17-minute commute to get in, they're still staying at home on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And this was before the pandemic,
right?
And it's great because it allows people that flexibility to do what they do, but also it created some space in the office. And so Super Yacht UK was saying to their members, if you need to pop in somewhere to do a bit of pre-meeting or post-meeting work, there's a hot desk here that as a member you get for free. Wi-Fi, printing, you name it, it's there. So that's kind of cool. And then I was chatting with Sarah Allen of Pennington Manchester Cooper lawyers, and they aren't opening another office. They're still expanding, but they don't need the office space, because then they've learnt now that they can hot desk. They've learned that they can do their work without having to have a desk with all the pictures and teddy bears and everything surrounding it. And they've realized that they can operate on a smaller footprint by allowing people to work in the office and at home. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But people still crave contact. And whether we're going to see a shift in the event space that mirrors the shift in the office space, I don't know. But I do know that brokers have been selling boats really successfully without the help of a boat show.
Yeah.
So what's the boat show for? I mean, a conference where people stand up and are presenting and exchanging ideas. I think conferences will always exist. You know, they've been around for a very long time, you know, hundreds of years. People have been standing up saying, well, this is what I think, or this is my new idea, or this is my thing. And people have been talking about it and so on. And then there's all the networking that goes with it. And I think those events will always still exist. They will be sustained as much as there are people to come along and visit them. And I, for one, I think it's a great thing. But I think there's a big question mark over boat shows and what boat shows are for. And it'll be interesting to see how METS is, because METS isn't a boat show. It's an equipment exhibition. And I think exhibitions potentially are there when there's new technologies and there's deals to be made and things like that. But I don't know whether boat show, because the amount of money it takes to bring just a few boats to a boat show, especially one that isn't in the water, you know, it's a really huge high cost for the boat manufacturer. Or the boat seller. And they've discovered that actually they don't need the show to sell the boats. They've still been selling boats. They've been doing well.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, events will change. I don't think conferences will change a vast amount, but I do think that boat shows are going to go through maybe some consolidation. They maybe have a change of style. We've seen virtual boat shows. I don't know what they're really like. I don't know how a virtual boat show is different to a web page that is a virtual showroom. What are you getting that makes it a boat show? You know, you're just getting a very busy day. So I don't know. And I think, you know, when the West Palm Beach show last year first announced that they were going to be a virtual boat show, there's people there selling engines. And engines are big chunks of machinery, and people like to touch things like that. And, you know, a virtual boat show doesn't help you. Whereas I suppose a virtual boat show can help people selling secondhand boats, where it gives them a reason, a deadline to get all their videos up together and ready, so that the potential buyers can come in and see a selection of boats all at the same time. So maybe boat shows will exist well for the secondhand boat market, the brokerage market, and for charters experiences. I don't know, because you're selling charters all year round. You're selling training all year round. You're selling equipment all year round. When people need to see and touch something, it's the same as a retail experience, isn't it? You know, if you're buying shoes, do you want to try them on? Because I do. If I've had them before, though, I don't need to try them on again. If my old pair is worn out and I want exactly the same shoes, Loke 251s, for example, I know what size I want, and I know I want them, so I can just buy more. So yeah, I think people presenting things for sale have to really think their way through what the buying process is, and understand how to give their prospective customers the relevant information and the appropriate experience that gives them the confidence to make a good purchase decision.
Yeah. Very valid, Ken. Listen, Ken, final comment from you is, you are a consultant now. What is your official job title in the world of super yachts?
I hate the C word, as you know, Martin. I believe it comes with baggage. My friend Don said to me that the consultant is the sort of person who'll come to your place of work, borrow your pencil, show you how to use it, keep the pencil, and write an invoice for you with your own damn pencil. And he is a consultant, so he knows. No, I say I'm an advisor. People, it's a perfect thing, Martin. People pay me for my opinion. And so I give them advice. They either take it or they don't take it, but they have to pay for it to get it. And as I said a few years ago, you can't buy experience, but you can rent it. So I work with people to help them succeed. I'm a non-exec director for a couple of companies now. We do business administration for a few other companies to help them focus on what they do. And they are small specialist companies doing what specialists do. That doesn't mean they're any good at running their own business. So we help them by running the business. And I think that there's it's like anything. The true thing that you cannot outsource is the idea of what you want to do for your business. Everything else, whether it's HR, marketing, law, accounting, production, sales, marketing, the whole lot, you can outsource everything, and including your business administration. You can outsource it all. So I'm a business advisor, Martin.
Okay. So there are a lot of SMEs out there that are in the super yacht sector.
Yep.
Can you give them one piece of advice as a closing comment?
Yes. I would say have a plan. Have a 3-year plan. Have a bullet point with the things you want to do, the things you plan to do this year, a list of the things you expect to do next year, and the things that you hope to do in the 3rd year. And every year, move the things across that you didn't get done, and then rewrite your bullet point list of your 3-year plan. You can build marketing stories around it and numbers around it and all the rest of it, but it's just, I want to see some bullet points. What do you plan to do? And it's got to be a thing that you can actually measure when it's done. How will you know when it's done? You know, not just say, oh, we're going to get better at doing something. How much better are you going to get? How will you know when you're better? Make it them simply things that you can say, I know when I've done it because it'll look like this.
Yeah.
3-year plan. Have a plan. Stick to it.
A good idea. Everyone should have a plan, including you and I. Listen, I plan to have a beer with you soon.
I plan to drink it.
Listen, Ken, thanks a million for your time. Always a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you face to face at one of the very many events that will coming up in the end of the year.
Martin, we'll be drinking beers June or July because there'll be so many events in Southampton you won't be able to stay away.
I will be there. Ken, thanks a million again.
Cheers then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.